Good morning, Carlos Ramirez, owner of NVS Audio in Roselle, New Jersey. So Eric reached out to us a month or two ago to set up an appointment. He's got a trip coming up at the end of the month, and he wanted to have really good music for his trip. So he started by ordering the brand new GTS radio from the dealer. It just arrived. You can tell it's brand new, still got the sticker on the screen. So we have to unlock it, activate CarPlay and Android Auto, and flash it flat. We chose to go with the xpert DSP, NVS Audio T-harness for the new GTS radio, so now the DSP is plug and play. He chose to go with our Stage 1 Plus, so it's going to be two evox 400.4s bridged, so it's going to give us 200 watts to each speaker in the front and 200 watts to the Tour Pack Pod speakers. Obviously, 200 watts can be a lot for the Hertz Neo 165, so we're probably going to dial it down to about 175. We could do all that through the DSP. This is going to be a really good sounding 4-speaker bike. He didn't want to take any room in his Tour Pack or the saddlebags, and I understand why. He brought the bike in, the Tour Pack is completely filled to the top with his stuff. It's a bagger, it's a rider bike. You're supposed to use it, and he's using it the way you're supposed to use it. So since we weren't doing any speakers in the lids or taking up room in the Tour Pack, he decided to go with one of the best speakers that we offer. So we're going with the Euphoria xpert Carbons in the fairing. These are the EXM6NCF and the Diamond Audio MO75T horns in the grills. We're replacing the grills with the new metal mesh Hogtunes grills, and then we're going to flush the tweeters into those. So this is going to be a really good sounding 4-speaker bike. When we're doing these bikes, these are by far my favorite speakers to use for the Tour Pack pods. These are the Hertz SPL Show SX165 Neo Coax. They're neodymium. They handle a really good amount of power. They're super slim. So the reason I like to use these is they're drop and fit with no modification. When you're doing Tour Pack pod speakers, especially on the Ultras and the CVOs, there's volume controls on the brake side pod that you have to remove, or you have to space out the speaker if you want to use a speaker with a larger magnet. I don't like the look of the speaker spaced out, and then on top of that, it takes away from the rear rider's comfort. So this is our go-to speaker. They're currently on back order. We're waiting on like 100 pair of these to come in, but we have a few stashed away for builds like this where we absolutely need them. So this is our go-to speaker for the Tour Pack pod because it sits in with no modification. The speaker is so slim, it just drops in. So it doesn't take away from the rear passenger comfort. You don't have to modify the pod. You don't have to run a spacer, because if you run a spacer, you can use almost any speaker you want. But then the issue is you're taking away from the smaller amount of room that there is for your rear seat passenger. And another thing people don't realize, the Tour Pack pods are ported. They're vented into the Tour Pack from Harley. If you have a factory Harley Tour Pack and factory Harley Tour Pack pods, if you look in the back, there's a hole, there's a vent hole. So you can use a 6.5-inch speaker that doesn't have a ton of mid bass. The Tour Pack pod produces a ton of bass when coupled with that Tour Pack enclosure. So you're adding a large magnet mid bass speaker when you really don't have to, because on the proper tune and the proper power, these things hammer. They sound really good. Then the grills that we like to use for the back are the ones from Hogtune. Hogtune makes a grill that sits nice and flat, so you don't have to worry about touching the cone. It doesn't hit the tweeter, and it also doesn't take away from the comfort of the rear passenger. Let me show you those. So these are the grills we use from the rear. They're made by Hogtunes. They're the rear RM grill is the part number, and it says right on the box, specifically made to fit the Rushmore platform factory rear speaker pods. The grill is nice and flat, indented so the tweeter can go in, and it doesn't stick out at all. It's a nice flush fit without taking away any comfort from the passenger, and the grill is nice, thick, heavy-duty metal, so you don't have to worry about it getting crushed. The grill we use for the front is the RG-RM grill. So on the Road Glides, some of them have a metal grill, but there's already, right here, there's already a circle indent for where the factory boom audio tweeter would sit. And then some of the other ones come with a plastic grill that's really flimsy. This one gives you a nice flat black canvas, and it's blank, and it's heavy duty, and it's metal. So when we flush in the MO75 tweeter here, you get a nice factory fit and finish. Even if your grills are all beat up and lost, you just replace them with these. But it does not come with the gaskets and clips. You have to take them off your original factory grills. Updating the firmware from 20.19 to 21.20. So we're upgrading from the GT to the GTS radio, getting rid of the Harley speakers, and see how it has the cheap plastic grill. We're gonna replace that with the metal ones. We're gonna replace the Tour Pack pod speakers and keep the same profile. And as you can see, he uses his Tour Pack. Apple CarPlay is enabled on Eric's radio, and it's unlocked and ready to be installed on his bike.
Two, three.
Everything neatly tucked. Two 400.4s under the factory GTS radio. So on Eric's bike, we did a couple of things that were special. He wanted everything to fit in the fairing. This is definitely a rider bike. We were not allowed to take up room in the saddlebags. So as a matter of fact, there was nothing installed in the saddlebags. This was a simple 4-speaker setup. So we did fairing speakers, horns in the grills, in the replacement grills, and we did Tour Pack pod speakers. So he wanted to get the best sound possible without modifying the bike, no cutting. We didn't cut the radio bracket, nothing. So we decided to go with a set of Euphoria xpert carbon fiber 6.5-inch mid-bass drivers and a set of Diamond Audio MO75 horns in the grills to give them the most sound possible in the front. We used 2 Sound Digital evox 400.4s bridged, and we used a set of Hertz SX 165 Neo for the Tour Pack pods. I see a lot of people go with large 6.5-inch drivers for the Tour Pack pod, which really doesn't make sense to me. The reason it doesn't make sense is the factory Harley Tour Pack pods are actually ported into the Tour Pack, so you don't have to use a monster 6.5-inch driver to get really good mid-bass. The SXs do really well. You get to keep your rear-mounted controls, volume controls for the rear passenger, and you don't have to add spacers. So the port in the Tour Pack does all the work for the low end, and then the speaker does all the work for the high end. When you start using larger drivers in the back of the Tour Pack, it really takes away from the rear passenger space. And when you use large grills, it also takes it, so it makes it uncomfortable for a rider in the back. We don't see, like, we've done larger drivers and you can run big power to it, but if you tune it properly and let the Tour Pack do its job with those ports, you can get really small 6.5-inch drivers to sound good. So we opted to go with a ground zero DSP after the xpert DSP was giving us a hard time on the bike. So we switched out to ground zero DSP, so the bike ended up being, we upgraded the radio to a GTS radio. We flashed the radio, activated CarPlay and Android Auto, Then from there, we used a T-harness to go into the ground zero DSP, added the Bluetooth module to the DSP. That way he can still have control over the DSP without pulling the fairing apart, without running a USB cable. The first 400.4 we bridged to run the two mid-bass drivers, so they're getting 200 watts apiece. And we bandpassed them from 72 Hertz to, I think we have them playing up to 5K. Then we ran the tweeters from 5K to 20,000 Hertz. They're run off channel 1 and 2 off the second amplifier. Then channel 3 and 4 on the second amplifier run the Hertz 165s. So this gave us plenty of power for the mid-bass drivers. I know they can handle more power, but 200 watts each gave them a nice little thump in the front. The major part of this was we did not cut the factory radio brackets, so two 400.4s fit in the 15 through 21 Road Glide without cutting the radio bracket. So we got 200 watts RMS to each mid-bass driver. We have the amplifier dialed back to give us about 50 watts each to each tweeter, and we're running 60 to 70 watts to each 6.5 in the back. This bike sounds phenomenal. He's happy with the way it turned out. I'm really happy with the way it turned out. And then he uses a tablet for his long road trips. He's about to go on a road trip, and he asked me to install green LEDs because with the tablet in place, sometimes he can't tell that his blinkers are on. So he wanted me to modify the fairing and drill holes in the fairing. I'm not a big fan of drilling holes in the fairing, so I asked him to give me a shot to do it a different way. And I had Saul install the LEDs behind the factory grille, so it actually lights up the entire grille. Right side when the right blinker's on, left side when the left blinker's on. So it's very noticeable. It attracts a lot of attention, and you can't tell that it's been modified. The bike looks completely stock. I'm really pleased the way it came out. He's happy the way it came out. So check out the build.